What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So, apologize this video is coming out a day late, but I had a job to do yesterday, so I couldn't go to the game. And then when I tried to watch it, it was not recorded, so I had to wait until 2 in the morning to watch it. And it's been a long weekend, so I'm just now getting down to sit down to review it. Let's talk about this game, because it was a bit of a mixed bag. On the one side, yes, it's a win. It's a win against Montreal, who are a good team, and it pretty much kind of clinches our playoff chances. This was one of, I think, 2 stumbling blocks we have going forward, and we managed to just get over it. So it's good to see that. However, this was the worst performance I think I've seen in the new stadium. I know that sounds weird saying that whenever we had a draw, but going back to that Orlando game, you really have to look at the fact that it was mainly a defensive lapse in concentration that led to the goals that we gave away. And on top of that, we were missing 2 of our key defenders back there. So you kind of have to take that game with a grain of salt and say, yes, we did draw, but we still pretty much controlled that game. It was just a few moments where they looked really good on the counterattack. We weren't prepared for it, and we gave away goals. But as far as our attack goes, we looked very deadly going forward. We still managed to get 3 goals in that game and still looked like we were the better team overall. This game, though, there were way too many moments where Montreal looked like they were the better team. It felt like it was 50-50 almost. Like they were creating all these good chances. We looked like we couldn't create any chances. There was at least a 20-minute stretch of the game where it felt like it was just all Montreal's attack. That's the first time that's happened in the new stadium. That I have not seen that so far. So that's my problem with this. And while it's still not the end of the world, we still did get the win, there are a few factors going into it that I do want to look at just going forward, because we do have a few games left. We have to be prepared for all of these games, and so we have to look at the mistakes that are made so we don't make the same mistakes going forward. First of all, I think the lineup has a lot to do with it. I think it's the same lineup we've seen for I don't know how many games in a row now, but ever since we hopped in the new stadium, it's been the same lineup. And the problem with this is it's been back-to-back games. It's been like 9 games in 3 weeks or something like that. Even at the top professional levels, that wears on you, especially at the top professional levels, because you have to be playing at such a high level. It's hard to maintain that same consistency throughout all of the games. And Tata has not made the changes. He hasn't given proper rest to a lot of these players. And you can see, you could see Joseph isn't the same flyer that he was earlier in the season. You could see Tito isn't making as many great runs as he normally does. Yamil is giving the ball away more. Miguel pulls up with a hamstring injury. These are issues that could have been fixed if we gave them some rest in some games where we didn't really need them. The LA Galaxy game. No offense to LA Galaxy, but they're not on a good run of form. They are definitely one of the worst teams in the league right now, and we still put out our best starting lineup and kept them out there for most of the game. So it's just frustrating issues like that where you could make one sub. For this game, let Brandon start. For this game, maybe let Kevin start or Julian start. Let one of them out there so that way you can give a break to your best players, so that way they're not coming into this game against a very tough team completely dead. So that was a frustration, and obviously Miguel coming out with a hamstring injury early on didn't help us either, because he is a very clever and quick player. As soon as he goes out and Julian comes on, there is a lack of quickness in our attack that you can definitely feel. As far as his injury goes, though, I heard today it was a hamstring injury. They're saying about 3 weeks. I'm hoping it's only 3 weeks, because that's great. Losing him now 3 weeks, which it's like 4 or 5 weeks before playoffs start, that means we're going to have him back by playoff time. I hope it's not worse than they're saying. I hope it's exactly 3 weeks, because better to lose him now than to lose him a week before playoffs start, So got to look at sort of the bright side of that. But let's talk about individual performances. Brad in goal definitely had a lot more to do last night than he has in several games. It's been mainly just 1 or 2 chances here or there. Orlando game aside, it really has been just lack of chances from the other team. He really hasn't had to do much aside from organize the defense and then play with his feet. In fact, that's all he had to do against New England. So last night, definitely a lot more chances coming in on him, definitely a lot more attack coming from Montreal. But he stood up to the challenge, managed to keep a clean sheet, so that's good to see. Antoine at right back, still not quite what I want to see from him, but it's better than what I saw a couple games ago against Orlando, where he was just terrible. Last night he looked better defensively. He still needs a little bit more going forward. I think he needs to work on his passing a bit more just because you want to keep more possession even under high pressure, and sometimes his passes can be a little bit astray. But defensively he did very well. I thought he definitely stepped up again and managed to hold him off for the most part. I'm going to talk about Michael and Perez together because they really did a very good job together of holding down that defensive line, especially because it felt like there were moments where the midfield really wasn't, aside from Jeff, obviously, because that's his job. But, Carlos, Tito, Yamil, there were a couple times, especially late on in the second half, where it felt like they weren't really concerned about getting back. Now, overall, I'm not going to say they all didn't. There were several times where they did. But you could definitely feel a disconnect between our defense and our midfield, or especially our attacking midfield. And that's difficult. Whenever they're constantly coming at you, you have to be always turned on and you have to be very solid defensively. And both Michael and Perez both were. I mean, they definitely stepped up. They definitely held down the defensive line the entire night. And it's probably the best performance I've seen from both of them, especially Perez, because, Michael, very solid defender. I've seen this for several games now. But Perez can tend to be a little bit naive. He can tend to be, kind of wild all over the place, knocking guys over. But last night, he looked very solid. Still a couple challenges that were a little bit crazy and dangerous, but he did a very good job of shutting them down, making sure they didn't have a free shot on goal. So great to see from him. Chris, kind of a hit and miss night. He did have a few good moments on the ball. He even looked a bit better defensively because one of my biggest problems with him has been he's not a true left back, and you can see he wants to get up in the attack, and he's not generally staying back and helping out defensively. But you can see he definitely looked like he was trying to be a lot more defensive. He was in the right positions. He was dropped back because they have three guys going forward. They have a winger on the right side that's constantly attacking that side. So it was very good to see that he actually had the sense of mind to say, all right, I can't go flying forward tonight because I've got to stay back and help out defensively. So it was good to see that part of it, but at the same time, he's still not a defender, and you can see that whenever he's one-on-one with somebody. So I hope Gray gets better soon, or I hope Mikey can show that he's ready to play, because we do need a defender back there. If we're going to face some of these better teams, especially when we face Toronto, we're going to need somebody who's going to defend well and who's going to make sure they don't have anything going forward. Two midfielders, Carlos and Jeff. I already said, Jeff dropped back very well, helped out defensively. Very good to see him get the goal that sort of, made things a little bit more comfortable for us later on, because he is our unsung hero this season. It's very funny to hear some of the people who are like, oh, Yamil, oh, Carlos, they're our unsung heroes. I'm like, no, they're not. They typically, people do praise them. Yamil pops up with goals and assists every now and then. Carlos, he's kind of flary, in his challenges, in his passes. He typically stands out whenever he plays. Jeff doesn't really stand out in what he does, but what he does is so effective and so vital to making sure that we have a clean sheet that you just can't take him out of there. The one game we take him out of the midfield, Orlando gets 3 goals. It's that type of thing where I can't imagine anybody else doing his job in there. So I just love watching him play. I love the challenges he puts in, and I love seeing him get a goal too, because he deserves it. He deserves to get a little bit of praise and recognition for what he does out there, because it feels like even the people who are trying to recognize players who don't get as much recognition still don't realize that he's the one that deserves the recognition. It's kind of a lot of recognizing that needs to happen. But Carlos, on the other hand, did have a good game. He ended up being voted man of the match. I didn't really see that. He did put in a lot of good defensive challenges, but at the same time, there were moments where he did give the ball away a little too cheaply at times. Yes, he wasn't really helped out by the fact that Tito and Joseph weren't really making the right runs for him. But at the same time, you still want him to be a bit more calm in possession And even some of his challenges, I've talked about before how they can be wild and crazy, and he goes flying into a slide tackle and then he gets beat. There were still a couple of those. It just most of those challenges were coming off for him last night, which is why he looked better than he normally does. But I want to see a little bit more of a cool head from him, and not so much of a I'm just gonna go flying in and hope to win the ball. But he did pretty well. I mean, he did a good job of making sure that they weren't able to just run at our defense. He did a good job of stepping in and providing, I guess, defensive pressure on them so they didn't have time and space to run. So that part of his game worked very well. Yamil, still the same issues I have with him. He's a good hard worker, works to win the ball back, great to see, but on the ball needs a lot more work. I never felt such a mixture of love and hate for one player. He does well to win the ball back. I'm like, yes, Yamil, you're awesome. And then he dribbles out of pressure. I'm like, go Yamil. And then he just gives the ball away, and all of a sudden they're attacking on us. I'm like, Yamil, you're an idiot. So, yeah, it's kind of a back and forth with him. He needs to be more composed. Kind of similar to Carlos, except because his challenges are happening on the wings, most of the time there's a lot more space if he gives the ball away. So he gives the ball away on the wing, and all of a sudden they've got all the time and space to run down the line. Whereas when Carlos gives it away, he's normally giving it away in an area where they're running into 3 or 4 more players right in front of them. They don't really have space to go. So it stands out a lot more to me whenever Yamil gives it away. And on top of that, there are a lot of possessions and attacking play that we have that breaks down because he gives it away doing something crazy and wild. To be fair, though, same thing with Tito. There are too many moments where he's just... You want him to be you want him to have a bit more vision. You want to see him thinking a lot more. So instead of just, I'm going to run across the top of the box and maybe I'll be able to find somebody, you want to see him looking up and saying, all right, what options do I have? Do I need to run and then cut it back? Do I need to just keep running and then find a guy open on the far side? Do I need to cut it back and maybe have a shot? It feels like most of what he does is just reacting to the situation of what he sees going on around him. And the best example I can think of it is there's one moment where he gets the ball down the line for him, plenty of space to run onto it. Joseph makes a great run into the box, but he doesn't see it because he's too busy focused here on the ball and then here on the defender, and that's it. He doesn't see anything else. He's just here. And so whenever he gets to the ball, Joseph's made a great run. If he played it first time, probably would have been in, but he gets there and then he's looking, and at that point, it's too late because you've already taken a touch, and either he's marked or he's offsides or something like that. So I just want to see a bit more thought and vision from Tito because he is a very clever and creative player and scored a great goal. But there are too many moments where he's giving it away or the attacking play is breaking down with him for whatever reason. So a little bit disappointment there, but great goal. Miguel obviously didn't have a whole lot of time before he came out, but you could see he was creating a lot of dangerous opportunities. One of the things that he provides that I think goes sort of unnoticed for the most part is he does a very good job of picking the ball off of either their defensive midfielders or their defenders. He's not really a great defensive player, but what he has is a very quick acceleration. And so it's like the guy has the ball and he thinks he's got plenty of time because Miguel's like, oh, he's 10 yards away, I've got plenty of time. But then all of a sudden he turns it on and the guy looks over there to see a pass. And so he turns on his quick acceleration and he nips in and pokes the ball away. And then either gets fouled in the process or he's in behind. So that's something that he brings that, Tito, Yamil, neither of them really have that same acceleration. They do have a very hard work rate for how much they try to win the ball back, but they don't have that same speed to nip in and poke the ball away. And obviously Julian doesn't have the speed or acceleration to do that. So last starting player, Joseph, a bit frustrated with him because, one, he should have finished 2 or 3 chances, but for whatever reason, he's just trying to do way too much with it instead of just slotting it in easily. And on top of that, you could see he just got frustrated and stopped trying second half. And I hate it whenever players do that. And Tito was kind of guilty of it as well. But where Tito was actually, he had those moments where he'd turn off on the attack, but then defensively he did sort of jog around and sort of put himself in a position to where a player didn't have space to play. For Joseph, he wasn't turned on to anything. Unless it was a ball over the top that he knew he could get to, he wasn't ready. Way too many moments where defense is trying to find an outlet. They're trying to find a way out to break this constant pressure that Montreal is applying. You want your forward to be in space. You want him to relieve the pressure, but he's just standing up there. And I've seen this so many times where that frustration gets to him, and all of a sudden his effort sort of drops off. You can't have that. You can't just turn off, because that could be the game that you need him the most. That could be the game against Toronto. That could be the finals of the playoff. You never know. And to know that he could turn off like that because he's getting frustrated, because he's not getting his way, it's childish, and you don't need that for a team sport. You need everybody to be working together. So it's really disappointed with him overall last night. It's just, you want to see him, I guess, grow more as a player. And I feel like he hasn't really grown at all. So very disappointing there. As far as the subs are concerned, Julian came on, did have a great cross in to set up Jeff's goal. But at the same time, like I've said before, he just doesn't really provide much for us. As far as whenever we don't have the ball, he doesn't really provide any good defensive work. He's a bit too slow to win the ball off of anybody. He reads it okay to the point where he can make a good interception every now and then. And then whenever he's on the ball, as long as he's playing simple, it's fine. It's whenever he tries to do the really fancy, intricate, long balls, most of the time it doesn't come off, and then we give away possession. So there's nothing wrong with him. There's nothing wrong with his style of play. It's just, I don't think it fits with our system, and I think there are too many holes in his game that whenever he's out there, there are mistakes happening. We're not keeping hold of the ball as much. We're not challenging them as much in the midfield. So I have my frustration with him, and nothing really happened in this game to change those. Later on in the second half, Kevin came on. I thought it came on a little bit too late, because by the time he came on, it was very, very high pressure from Montreal. And Tito at that point had already started to look really worn out, and like he just didn't have anything else in his tank. And so Kevin's the perfect player to bring in at that point, because not only does he provide good defensive work and a very good just possession type of play, but you need the fresh legs. You need somebody in there who's going to be able to run nonstop, and Kevin can do that. So I don't know, it felt like he waited too long. I think it was like the 75th minute or something like that he waited to bring him in. I would have brought him in either 65 or 70. Just get him on a bit sooner, so that way we have more help out there. And then the last sub to come on, Kenwin Jones makes his return. Got Joseph off. Haven't seen Kenwin in a while. He's been injured. He's been out for a very long time. And on top of that, Joseph returned from injury. Brandon was looking like a good young striker. There really wasn't a place for him in the team, but because Joseph needed a break, because Brandon's out, because the referee's an idiot from the last game, it's a chance for him to come back in. Did very good. First thing he has to do is come in and defend a corner. Did very well there. But as far as the rest, I think it came in with 3 or 4 minutes left, so he didn't really have time to do much of anything. But he did come in as a big body and worked pretty well there. But there's still a place in the team for him. I still think if a game calls for somebody like him who's going to be sort of a target man and win the ball out of the air and hold it up, I think he can still do that very well. But you look at how Joseph's playing of late, you look at the fact that Brandon's a good young striker who can pretty much be a target man himself because he's a bigger kid. You really feel like there's not much of a place in the room or in the team for Kenwin. So a little bit, I'd say he's probably a little bit disappointed because I'm sure he wanted to play more of a first team role. But hopefully he can be okay to do his job for now, because we probably will need him going forward. If Joseph is hurting, or obviously Brandon's not going to be with us for a couple more games, so we may need a backup striker in him. But that's about it for this game. So yeah, there's nothing really else to talk about. I hope some of the mistakes, some of the flaws that I saw in this game, I hope they don't carry over to the next game, because I'd love to finish this season undefeated. I'd love to go out the last, 5 games I think that we've got left. Just go undefeated in all of them. Win all your home games. Maybe get a draw against New York. We should beat New England because they're kind of struggling at the moment. So I'd love to just go and see them finish off this season without losing again, because that would be a great way to end the season and great way to build momentum going into the playoffs. And I'm pretty sure if we do that, we'll probably end up second place over New York City. So obviously I'm very critical, so let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game? Did you see the same problems that I saw? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. I'll see you guys in the next game. Peace out.